Dr. Vitor Pastorini is an oncologist with Quincy Medical Group, here to talk about something important, and we do want to say this segment is sponsored by Quincy Medical Group. Dr. Pastorini, thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
We're going to talk about something a lot of people don't like to talk about, and that's colorectal cancer. This is Colorectal Cancer Month, and this is a very serious disease. Does it affect different people, men, women, different races differently?
Yeah, well, it's the third most common cancer in men and the second most common cancer in women. African Americans have a little bit of a higher risk and more aggressive disease, so the screening changes a little bit, so it's 50 years for the regular population. Some entities would endorse 45 years for African Americans.
Okay, and I've heard of younger people. I actually have two cousins who were under 40 and were survivors of colon cancer. So
Right.
what kind of things can people look out for if they don't hit that threshold where the doctor recommends you get screened?
Yeah, so I think for the most, it's not as common to have in the younger population, less than 50 years, so the screening recommendations don't change. But obviously, if you have a family member who had ever been diagnosed with colon cancer, we usually say screen 10 years younger than the first relative when the first relative was diagnosed. So if it was the first relative was diagnosed at 50, then screening begins at 40. So if diagnosed at 40, then at 30.
Gotcha. What kind of things can people do to try and prevent it? Are there lifestyle changes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is smoke cessation, so no smoking, healthy diet, more fibers, fruits. There is some controversy about processed meats and red meats as well.
Okay.
And just try to live a normal, healthy lifestyle with exercising and physical activity as well will help.
And what does it take to diagnose colon cancer?
I think the biggest tool is really the colonoscopies. They have some other forms of screening, but the gold standard at this point is colonoscopies. That we talked about, starting at age 50, which a lot of people don't like.
Right.
But it does save lives, because we do think that it takes about 10 years from a polyp that you have in your cancer to develop into cancer. So we're trying to prevent the natural process of the disease.
In just a couple minutes, we're going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel. Just had a colonoscopy on his show. It obviously wasn't live, just 2 nights ago. What does it do when celebrities, Katie Couric, Jimmy Kimmel, bring this to the forefront?
I think it helps the society in general, because it brings it to the spotlight, and then more people be like, oh, I'm going to talk to my primary care provider, and then, hopefully then we search more information and people end up, lining up to get colonoscopies as well and preventing their disease.
I think that's the key. Talk to your primary provider if you're having problems. Talk about it. Dr. Pastorini, thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Again, this segment was sponsored by Quincy Medical Group.